The night smelled like rain and gasoline. Elena Vasquez stood behind the scratched plexiglass barrier of Register 3, her pregnant belly pressing against the counter's edge, her lower back screaming with the kind of pain that had become her constant companion. The digital clock above the lottery ticket display blinked 11:43 p.m. in angry red numbers. 17 minutes until she could lock the doors. 17 minutes until she could peel off these shoes that were 2 sizes too small because her feet had swollen and she couldn't afford new ones. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like trapped insects, casting everything in that particular shade of sickly yellow that made even healthy people look half dead. Elena had stopped checking her reflection months ago. She knew what she'd see. Dark circles, pale skin, the hollowed-out look of someone running on fumes and stubborn will. Her hands moved through the familiar choreography of the night shift. Scan, bag, smile. Have a good night. Repeat. The rhythm was meditative, almost hypnotic. It kept her mind from wandering to dangerous territories, kept her from thinking about the eviction notice folded in her purse, the one giving her 72 hours to vacate, kept her from calculating how many shifts she'd need to work before the baby came and how impossibly few she'd have after, kept her from remembering that 6 months ago she'd had a husband, a plan, a future that made sense. The store was nearly empty at this hour. Just old Mr. Patterson shuffling through the beer cooler in the back, taking his time selecting his nightly six-pack like it was a wine tasting, and a man in a black suit standing motionless near the magazine rack. Elena had noticed him immediately. You developed instincts working overnight in this neighborhood. 3 convenience stores robbed in the last month. 2 clerks hospitalized, 1 killed. You learned to catalog threats, to measure distances to panic buttons, to assess exit routes. Without appearing to look, the man hadn't moved in 8 minutes, hadn't picked up a single magazine, just stood there perfectly still, like a predator deciding whether to strike. Elena's hand drifted toward the silent alarm beneath the counter. Not pressing it, just ready. Mr. Patterson finally made his selection, same beer he bought every night, and shuffled to her register. Elena rang him up, made change, wished him well. The electronic chimes sang as he pushed through the door, and then she was alone. Alone with the man in the suit. He moved then, not rushed, not furtive. Each step was measured, deliberate, expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against cheap linoleum with the confidence of someone who'd never had to hurry for anything. As he approached the counter, Elena's pulse accelerated despite her attempt to remain calm. Details accumulated like evidence at a crime scene. The suit was custom-tailored, probably cost more than she'd earned in the entire past year. His hands were scarred across the knuckles, not the random marks of accidents, but the systematic damage of violence, repeatedly applied. A thin white line traced along his jaw, the kind of scar that came from a blade held by someone who knew exactly where to cut. But it was his eyes that made Elena's breath catch in her throat. Dark. Not just brown, but something deeper, obsidian maybe, or the black of deep water where light never reached. Ancient eyes in a face that couldn't have been past 40. Eyes that had witnessed things, done things, survived things that left permanent scars on whatever passed for his soul. He placed a single bottle of water on the counter between them. Nothing else. Just water. Elena scanned it, the beep absurdly loud in the quiet store. $1.79. The man reached into his jacket. Elena tensed, ready to drop. But he only withdrew a wallet, black leather, worn at the edges, the kind of wear that came from years of use. Not intentional. Distressing. He extracted a crisp $100 bill and placed it on the counter. Elena stared at it. I don't have change for this. Store policy after 9 p.m. Keep it. His voice was low, quiet, controlled. The kind of voice that never needed to be raised because people learned to listen the first time. Elena slid the bill back across the scarred counter. I can't accept tips. Against policy. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps. Or curiosity. like he'd expected a different response and was recalculating based on new data. "It's not a tip," he said. "Consider it a donation. I don't accept charity." Elena kept her voice level, professional, even as every instinct screamed that she was poking something dangerous. "You can pay for the water with appropriate change, or you can put it back." The man tilted his head slightly, studying her with those bottomless eyes. Really looking at her now, seeing past the uniform and the exhaustion, seeing something that apparently interested him. "You're 7 months pregnant," he said quietly. "Working the overnight shift in a neighborhood where people get hurt for a lot less than $100. Your shoes don't fit. You haven't eaten dinner. I can see the granola bar wrapper in the trash from your break, and that's not enough. And you're refusing free money." 6 months, Elena corrected automatically. "And yes, I'm refusing." "Why?" The question hung in the air between them. Outside, a car drove past, bass thumping loud enough to rattle the windows. The refrigeration units hummed their constant song. Somewhere in the back, something dripped with metronomic precision. Elena could have given him the simple answer: pride, policy, professionalism. But something about those ancient eyes demanded truth, and she was too tired to construct elaborate lies. "Because money that easy comes with strings," she said quietly. "And I don't want to know what kind of strings a man like you attaches to his generosity." Silence stretched between them like pulled glass, ready to shatter at the slightest pressure. The man's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. A subtle relaxation, as if he'd just received confirmation of a hypothesis. "A man like me," he repeated almost to himself. Then he reached into his jacket again, slower this time, letting her see, and withdrew a regular wallet. Found 2 single-dollar bills and placed them on the counter. "For the water." Elena made change. 1 quarter, 4 pennies, 2 dimes. She counted it into his palm with practiced efficiency, careful to avoid skin contact, and placed the water bottle in a plastic bag. The man pocketed his change, picked up the bag, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he paused, didn't turn around. "What's your name?" Every alarm bell in Elena's head screamed not to answer. Giving her name felt like handing over a piece of herself, like offering a vulnerability she couldn't afford. But refusing seemed more dangerous than complying. Men who asked questions in that tone weren't accustomed to being denied. "Elena." He nodded once, a small gesture that somehow conveyed volumes. "Elena," he repeated, as if testing the weight of it. Then he was gone, disappearing into the parking lot darkness like smoke dissipating into night air. Elena released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Her hands were trembling now, adrenaline flooding her system on a delay, her body finally processing the danger it had suppressed during the encounter. She locked the register with shaking fingers and began the closing procedures that Marcus had drilled into her during training. Count the drawer, print the Z report, secure the cash in the safe, dim the lights, lock the doors, walk to her car with keys between her fingers like improvised weapons. She didn't notice the black Mercedes idling across the street, engine running, lights off. Didn't see the man inside making a phone call, speaking rapidly in Italian. Didn't know that, in refusing Dominic Lavros' money, she'd done something no one in this city had managed in 15 years. She'd made herself interesting to a very dangerous man. And in his world, interesting was either very good or very fatal. 3 days passed in their usual blur of exhaustion and survival. Elena worked her shifts in careful rotation. 4 hours at the quick-stop convenience store, 6 hours folding linens in the hospital laundry service, 4 hours sleep if she was lucky, then repeat. The baby kicked during her sparse breaks, small feet pressing insistently against her ribs, reminding her why she kept moving when every cell in her body begged to stop. The eviction notice remained folded in her purse, a ticking time bomb she couldn't defuse. 72 hours had become 48, then 24. She'd tried calling her landlord, Victor Torino, but his secretary said he was unavailable and would reach out when he had time, which Elena understood meant never. She looked into shelters. Most were full. The ones with availability had waiting lists stretching weeks, and none of them allowed pregnant women in their 3rd trimester because they couldn't handle the liability if she went into labor. Elena was running out of road, and the cliff was getting closer. Sophia called on Tuesday night. Her younger sister, 22, and studying nursing at Arizona State, still believed their mother's life insurance policy was covering Elena's expenses. Elena hadn't told her the policy had lapsed 2 months before the accident that killed James. Hadn't mentioned the medical bills that were slowly drowning her. Hadn't explained that the baby's crib existed only as a picture on a website Elena visited late at night when insomnia and hope briefly aligned. Some burdens you carried alone because sharing them only created more weight for other people to carry. "How are you feeling?" Sophia asked, her voice bright with the particular optimism of someone whose biggest stress was an upcoming exam. "Good," Elena lied. "Tired, but good. Are you eating enough? Taking your vitamins?" "Yes, Mom," Elena teased, injecting warmth she didn't feel into her voice. They talked for 20 minutes about nothing important. Sophia's classes, her roommate drama, a guy who'd asked her out, normal things, safe things, things that existed in a world where pregnant widows didn't face homelessness. After they hung up, Elena sat in her car in the hospital parking lot and allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to cry. 5 minutes to feel the crushing weight of everything falling apart. Then she wiped her face, reapplied her cheap makeup, and went inside to fold other people's laundry. Thursday night, she was restocking shelves at the Quick Stop when Marcus approached. Her manager was 34, divorced twice, perpetually exhausted, and treated Elena with the awkward kindness of someone who recognized suffering but didn't know how to address it. "Hey, there's a guy outside asking for you," Marcus said, shifting his weight uncomfortably. "Didn't give a name. Just said he needed to speak with Elena. I told him you were working, and he said he'd wait." Marcus glanced toward the windows. "Probably nothing, but you want me to call someone? Or stay close?" Elena's stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. What does he look like? Expensive suit, black car, looks like... Marcus struggled for words. Looks like someone who doesn't usually wait for anything. Elena set down the box of chips she'd been shelving. "I'll handle it." She found him leaning against a black Mercedes. Same expensive suit. Different tie. Deep burgundy instead of navy. Dominic Lavros. Even under the parking lot's harsh sodium lights, he looked like he belonged somewhere else. Somewhere with marble floors and crystal chandeliers and decisions that shaped the fates of cities. Elena pushed through the door, the night air cool, against her overheated skin. She stopped a careful 10 feet away, maintaining distance like it was armor. "If you're here to try again with the money, the answer hasn't changed," she said. "I'm not." Dominic straightened, and she noticed again how he moved. Economy of motion, perfect balance, the physicality of someone who'd trained extensively in violence. "I'm here because someone's been asking questions about you." The parking lot tilted. Elena reached for the brick wall, steadying herself against sudden vertigo. "What kind of questions?" "Your schedule, your address, whether you live alone, whether you have family who'd notice if something happened to you." He paused, letting that sink in. "Whether you'd be worth the effort to make disappear?" Elena's blood turned to ice water in her veins. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing her mother's terror. "Who?" she asked, though some part of her already knew. "Victor Torino, small-time dealer trying to move into larger operations. He owns the building you live in." Dominic's voice remained factual, empty of inflection, like he was reading from a report. "You're 3 months behind on rent. He's decided not to pursue official eviction because he's found alternative methods of collecting what he's owed." Elena had met Victor Torino exactly 3 times. Once when she'd signed the lease, desperate for housing after James's death. Once when she'd asked for an extension after missing her first payment. Once when she'd tried to negotiate a payment plan. Each meeting, his eyes had lingered on her body in ways that made her skin crawl. The second time, he'd mentioned that some tenants paid rent through alternative arrangements, and that a pretty girl with your situation had options to explore. The third time, he'd touched her arm and suggested they discuss terms privately. Elena had started locking her apartment door with the chain after that, had stopped answering calls from unknown numbers, had started varying her route home because she'd noticed the same car trailing her twice. "Why are you telling me this?" Elena forced the words past the constriction in her throat. "Because you said no to me." Something that might have been respect flickered across Dominic's features. "Most people don't do that. They see what I am, and they either run or they grovel or they scheme. But you looked at $100 like it was poison and told me to take my charity somewhere else." He took a step closer. "That means you're either remarkably stupid or you have principles strong enough to override survival instinct. I had you investigated. You're not stupid." "You had me investigated?" Anger cut through Elena's fear. "Of course I did. You interested me. I investigate things that interest me." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You work 73 hours a week across 3 jobs. You eat 1 meal a day, if granola bars count as meals. You haven't purchased a single item for yourself that wasn't on clearance in 4 months. But you paid your sister's phone bill even though you're behind on rent, and you donated $20 to the Children's Hospital Charity Fund at your register last week." He recited facts like reading from a dossier, because he was. "You're drowning, Elena, and Victor Torino is circling like a shark that smells blood in the water." Elena's chest felt too tight. She couldn't get enough air. The parking lot spun slowly around her, reality tilting on an axis she couldn't see. The baby kicked again, rhythmic thumps against her ribs that said, "I'm here, Mama, protect us." "What do you want from me?" The question came out as a whisper. "To make you an offer." "I already told you." "Not money." Dominic closed the distance between them until he was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke and leather. "Protection. I make 1 phone call, and Victor Torino doesn't just leave you alone. He apologizes for the air he's breathed in your general direction. You work your shifts without looking over your shoulder. You deliver your baby in a hospital instead of a homeless shelter or worse." It was everything she needed. Every impossible thing she'd been too terrified to even want, which made it the most dangerous offer she'd ever received, because things that seemed too good to be true usually were. "In exchange for what?" Elena asked, proud that her voice didn't shake. Dominic smiled, but it didn't reach those ancient eyes. "Honesty." Elena blinked. "I don't understand. Everyone I meet wants something from me. Power, money, protection, revenge, opportunity. They lie. They manipulate. They tell me what they think I want to hear. They construct elaborate fictions about who they are and what they believe because they think that's how you survive in my world." He studied her face like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve, a code he couldn't crack. "You looked at $100 like it was a rattlesnake. You're the first genuinely honest person I've encountered in a very long time. So here's my offer. I keep you safe from men like Victor Torino and anyone else who might think a pregnant woman alone is easy prey. In exchange, you keep being honest with me. No flattery, no manipulation, no pretty lies. Just truth." Elena's mind raced through implications and consequences. This man was dangerous. Everything about him screamed it. The scars, the expensive suit, the casual way he talked about making people disappear. Getting involved with someone like Dominic Lavros was stepping off a cliff into darkness. But Victor Torino was a cliff too, and she'd run completely out of ground to stand on. "Just honesty?" she asked carefully. Nothing else? No. Obligations. Nothing else. You tell me what you really think. You don't pretend to be someone you're not. You treat me like a person instead of a transaction. He paused. And if you ever want out, you tell me. Walk away. No retaliation, no consequences. It was too simple, too clean. Men like him didn't make deals without hidden clauses and fine print written in blood. But Elena was 6 months pregnant, 24 hours from eviction, and completely out of options that didn't end in disaster. Sometimes you had to choose which kind of darkness to trust. Okay, she whispered. Dominic pulled out his phone. Not an iPhone. Something encrypted looking and expensive, and made a call. He spoke 3 sentences in rapid Italian. Listened for 5 seconds. Ended the call. It's done, he said, pocketing the phone. You'll receive a new lease agreement tomorrow by courier. First 6 months paid in full. Market rate rent going forward. No increases for 2 years. Your locks will be changed by noon. I told you I wouldn't accept. You're accepting. Steel entered his voice, the first real edge she'd heard. Because your daughter deserves a roof over her head, and your pride doesn't get a vote in this. We made a deal. I'm honoring my end. You'll honor yours by staying safe and healthy. Elena froze. How did you know it's a girl? You rest your hand on the right side of your belly. Studies show mothers carrying girls unconsciously do that more frequently than those carrying boys. He turned toward his car, then stopped. Also, it was in the investigation report. You had an ultrasound 6 weeks ago at the county clinic. He drove away before Elena could formulate a response, leaving her alone under dying lights, trying to process what she'd just agreed to, trying to understand why a man like Dominic Lavros would want honesty badly enough to trade protection for it, trying not to think about what would happen when he inevitably wanted more. The new lease arrived by courier at 7 a.m. Elena stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it, half expecting some trap, some clause she'd missed. But there was nothing except exactly what Dominic had promised. 6 months. Rent paid in full. Market rate going forward. No signature required from her because he'd already handled everything. A locksmith arrived at 11. Professional, efficient, didn't ask questions, changed all 3 locks and handed her a set of keys. Mr. Lavros said to tell you the building now has security cameras in the hallways and parking area, the locksmith said, and that Victor Torino no longer owns this property. New management company took over this morning. Elena sat on her threadbare couch after he left and cried for the first time since James's funeral. Great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body, releasing months of accumulated terror and exhaustion and desperate hope. She cried because she was safe. Cried because she'd sold her honesty for that safety. Cried because she didn't know if that made her smart or damned. When the tears finally stopped, she slept for 6 hours straight, the longest uninterrupted rest she'd had in months. She woke to her phone ringing. Sophia? Oh my God, Elena, you won't believe what just happened. Her sister's voice was high with shocked joy. Someone paid my entire tuition for the year. Like, all of it. $15,000. The bursar's office called me in and said it was an anonymous donation specifically designated for my account. They wouldn't tell me who, but, Elena, that's everything. I don't have to work 3 jobs anymore. I can actually focus on school and... Sophia paused, suddenly uncertain. Did you do this? Because if you did, I can't accept it. You need... It wasn't me, Elena interrupted, which was technically true. I don't have that kind of money. Then who? We don't know anyone who... Realization dawned in Sophia's voice. Is this that guy? The one who's been helping you? Elena closed her eyes. I don't know. But she did know. Of course she did. That night, Dominic was waiting in the hospital parking lot when Elena's laundry shift ended. Same car, same suit, same eyes that saw. Too much. Elena walked directly to the Mercedes and knocked on the passenger window. He unlocked it. She got in. I told you I don't accept charity, she said without preamble. And I told you it's not charity. It's investment. He turned to face her. Your sister becomes a nurse. She helps people. Those people remember kindness. They develop loyalty. Loyalty is the only currency that actually matters in this world. He said it like explaining basic mathematics. Besides, you didn't accept it. She did. That's semantics. That's strategy. He started the engine. We need to talk, really talk, and not in a parking lot. Every instinct Elena possessed screamed at her to refuse, to get out of this car, to run while she still could. But she was exhausted from fighting alone, from pretending she didn't desperately need help, from maintaining the fiction that she could handle everything by herself. Where? She asked. Somewhere you can sit down. You look ready to collapse. He drove through streets that became progressively nicer, the buildings taller, the cars more expensive. They stopped at a park overlooking the river, actual landscaping, maintained paths, lights that all worked. At 2 a.m., it was deserted, just the city lights reflecting off dark water like captured stars. Dominic killed the engine. Classical music played softly from the speakers, something Russian, achingly beautiful, and profoundly sad. Victor Torino is dead, Dominic said into the silence. Elena's breath stopped in her chest. What? Heart attack. Very sudden, very unexpected for a 38-year-old man. His voice carried no emotion whatsoever. The medical examiner's report will show he had an undiagnosed heart condition, which technically is true. His heart did stop working. He turned to look at her. He won't bother you again. He won't bother anyone again. Horror and relief crashed through Elena in equal measure, battling for dominance. Did you kill him? No. Dominic held her gaze. But I would have. That's what you need to understand about me, Elena. I'm not a good man. I've killed people. I've destroyed lives. I will continue doing both when necessary, because that's what I am. What my world requires. But I keep my word, and I protect what's mine. I'm not yours, Elena said automatically. No, he agreed. But you're under my protection now, which means the rules of your life have changed. People will notice. They'll test boundaries. Some will try to use you to get to me. Some will target you specifically because hurting you hurts me. Elena felt like she was drowning in deep water. Then maybe we should end this. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe. Dominic reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, giving her time to pull away. He placed his hand over hers where it rested on her pregnant belly. His palm was warm, calloused, real. Or maybe you're the first genuine thing that's happened to me in 20 years. Maybe I'm selfish, enough to want to keep you in my life just so I can remember what honesty feels like. What it's like to talk to someone who doesn't want anything except conversation. His touch burned, not with heat, but with presence, the weight of connection, of someone actually seeing her. Elena hadn't been touched with gentleness since James died, hadn't realized how desperately she'd missed simple human contact until this moment. I don't know how to navigate this, she whispered as your world, this, whatever this is. Neither do I, Dominic admitted. But we made a deal. Honesty. So here's mine. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just know that talking to you feels different than anything else in my life. And I want more of that. More conversations where someone tells me the truth instead of what they think I want to hear. Elena looked down at his hand covering hers. Scarred knuckles. Evidence of violence. But the touch itself was gentle, almost reverent. What happens if I can't keep being what you need? She asked. Then you tell me and I let you go. That's the deal. He withdrew his hand. I'm many terrible things, Elena, but I keep my promises. They sat in silence, the music playing, the river flowing below, the city breathing around them. Finally, Elena spoke. Okay, we try. But you have to promise me something. What? You never lie to me. If I ask you something, you tell me the truth, even if it's ugly, Even if you think I can't handle it." She turned to face him fully. "I'd rather live with hard truths than pretty lies." Dominic smiled, a real smile this time, transforming his entire face. Deal. He drove her home, walked her to her door, waited until she locked it behind her before leaving. Elena stood in her apartment, truly hers now, safe, and wondered what exactly she'd just gotten herself into. Wondered if honesty was really enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. Wondered if she'd just made the best decision of her life or signed her own. Death warrant. Spring bled into early summer. The days grew longer, hotter. Elena's belly expanded steadily, the baby growing stronger, more active. Her life developed a new rhythm. Dominic appeared at unexpected times, never intrusive, never demanding. Sometimes at the quick stop, buying water and talking to her during slow periods. Sometimes at the hospital, showing up when her shift ended with food, because he'd noticed she kept forgetting to eat. Once at her apartment with bags of groceries, because her refrigerator looked depressingly empty. He never touched her beyond that one time in the car, never made advances, just talked. She learned things about him in fragments, pieces of a puzzle slowly assembling. He'd grown up in poverty in South Boston, clawed his way to power through intelligence, ruthlessness, and a willingness to do things other people flinched from. Lost his wife, Sophia, to pancreatic cancer 6 years ago. Had no children, which he described as a mercy rather than a tragedy, because his world was no place for innocence. He read philosophy voraciously. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. Collected rare books in multiple languages. Spoke fluent Italian, functional Russian, conversational Mandarin. Donated anonymously to children's hospitals and domestic violence shelters, acts of penance for sins he wouldn't specify. In exchange, Elena told him about her life. Meeting James in high school, how he'd been quiet and gentle and made her laugh. Marrying at 22, planning for children, building something modest but real. The drunk driver who'd killed him 8 months ago, how she'd been 12 weeks pregnant when the police knocked on her door. "I was furious at first," she admitted one night, sitting in his car outside her building. "Furious at James for leaving me. Furious at God for taking him. Furious at myself for being pregnant because it made everything so much harder." She pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the baby's rhythmic kicks. "Then I felt her move for the first time, and I realized she's all I have left of him. This tiny person who's half James, half me, and I couldn't be angry anymore. Just determined." "Determined to what?" Dominic asked quietly. "To make sure she has a better life than I did, than James did, to give her safety and opportunity and the freedom to become whoever she wants to be." Elena looked at him. "That probably sounds naive to someone like you." "No," Dominic said. "It sounds like the most honest thing I've ever heard." Their friendship, if that's what it was, deepened through those stolen conversations. Elena found herself looking forward to his appearances, to the way he listened with complete focus, to how he challenged her assumptions without dismissing her experiences. Marcus noticed. "So who's the guy in the expensive car?" he asked one night, restocking cigarettes while Elena counted her drawer. "A friend. Friends don't usually drive Mercedes and wear watches that cost more than my annual salary." Marcus wasn't accusatory, just curious. "You in some kind of trouble?" "The opposite," Elena said carefully. "He helped me when I needed it." "What does he get in return?" It was the question everyone would ask eventually. The question Elena asked herself in quiet moments. "Conversation," she said. Because it was true, even if it sounded absurd. In her 7th month, Elena's body finally gave up the fight against exhaustion. She collapsed during a shift at the hospital laundry, the room tilting sideways, darkness swallowing everything. She woke in the ER to bright lights and worried faces. A doctor, young, competent, kind, explained that she was severely dehydrated and anemic, that she needed rest, reduced hours, proper nutrition, things Elena couldn't afford. "Is the baby okay?" Elena asked, her hand instinctively going to her belly. "Your daughter's fine," the doctor assured her, "but you won't be if you keep pushing like this. Your body is sending you warnings. You need to listen." Elena nodded, already calculating which shifts she could drop, how she could stretch her money further, what she could sacrifice next. Then Dominic appeared in the doorway. He stood there in his expensive suit, and something in his expression made Elena's chest ache. Raw fear, undisguised, uncontrolled fear that transformed his entire face from dangerous to vulnerable. "I'm okay," Elena said immediately. Dominic crossed the room in 3 strides, took her hand between both of his. His fingers were shaking. "You collapsed," he said, voice rough. "At work. You've been unconscious for 40 minutes. Just dehydration. The doctor said you're working yourself to death." Anger bled into his fear. "You're 7 months pregnant and operating on maybe 4 hours of sleep a night and 1 meal a day, and you think your body can sustain that indefinitely?" "I don't have a choice," Elena protested. "Yes, you do." Dominic's grip tightened. "You just refuse to take it because you're so goddamn stubborn about accepting help. Well, here's some honesty for you. I can't watch you destroy yourself. I won't. So you're going to let me help. Really help. Not just rent. Everything. Medical care, food, time to actually rest. You're going to accept it, and you're not going to fight me on this." "Why?" The question burst out of Elena before she could stop it. "Why do you care so much? I'm nobody. A pregnant cashier you met at a convenience store. Why does it matter to you if I run myself into the ground?" The machines beeped. Footsteps echoed in distant corridors. Outside, an ambulance siren wailed. "Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be human," Dominic said quietly. "You don't fear me. You don't want anything from me except honest conversation. You look at me and see a person, not a weapon or a bank account or a stepping stone to power. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious?" Tears slipped down Elena's cheeks. "I'm a mess. I'm broke. I'm exhausted. I'm pregnant with another man's child." "You're the bravest person I've ever met." Dominic reached up with his free hand, wiped her tears away with his thumb. The gesture was so gentle it broke something inside her. "You've lost everything and you're still fighting, still choosing kindness, still putting your daughter's future above your own survival. That's not weakness, Elena. That's strength I can't even comprehend." "I don't know how to accept this much help," Elena whispered. "Then learn." He squeezed her hand. "Let me take care of you. Not as payment, not as obligation, as choice. Because I want to. Because you matter to me. Because..." He stopped, seemed to wrestle with something. "Because you've become important, and I protect what's important." Elena should have said no. Should have protected her independence, her pride, the walls she'd built around her heart. But she was so tired, so desperately, crushingly tired. "Okay," she whispered. Relief flooded Dominic's face. "Okay." That night, he stayed, slept in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside her hospital bed, her hand wrapped in his, a dangerous man keeping vigil over a cashier who'd had the audacity to be honest with him. And somewhere in the space between darkness and dawn, Elena realized she'd fallen in love with him, realized it, and had no idea what to do about it. The next 3 weeks transformed Elena's life. Dominic didn't just help, he orchestrated. A night nurse appeared, Teresa, a stern woman in her 60s, who'd raised 6 children and took exactly 0 nonsense from anyone. She handled Elena's nighttime care, made sure she ate proper meals, monitored her vitals with terrifying efficiency. Elena's apartment gained furniture, a real crib assembled and ready. A rocking chair that Dominic had somehow learned was the exact style Elena had bookmarked. Baby clothes in soft pastels, diapers, bottles. everything she'd been quietly panicking about acquiring. Her shifts were reduced. The quick stop manager, who Elena suspected had received either a generous payment or a very convincing phone call, cut her to part-time. The hospital laundry service did the same. She was still working, still earning, but no longer destroying herself in the process. Sophia called, ecstatic about her semester grades, about how having time to study had transformed everything. "I'm at the top of my class now," she said, wonder in her voice. "I'm actually going to be a good nurse, Elena, a really good one." "You were always going to be good," Elena said. "Now you just have the space to become great." Through it all, Dominic visited. Almost every evening, he'd appear with food or books or just conversation. They'd sit in her apartment or his car, or occasionally at quiet restaurants he knew, and they'd talk. He told her about his world, carefully, keeping the violence abstract, but honest about its existence, the territories, the alliances, the constant chess game of power, the way trust was currency and betrayal was death, how lonely it was at the top, surrounded by people who wanted things from you, but never wanted you. Elena told him about her fears, about whether she'd be a good mother, about how she still dreamed about James and woke up crying, about the guilt she felt for being attracted to Dominic while still grieving her husband. "You're allowed to live," Dominic said gently. "James would want you to live, not just survive, actually live." "How do you know what he'd want?" "Because if I loved you, that's what I'd want." He said it simply, matter-of-factly, then seemed to realize what he'd implied. "Hypothetically." "Hypothetically," Elena echoed, her heart racing. But they both knew it wasn't hypothetical at all. One night, 8 months pregnant and unable to sleep, Elena found Dominic on her apartment balcony. He stood looking out at the city, hands in his pockets, expression distant. "Can't sleep?" she asked, joining him. "Thinking." "About how I got here?" He glanced at her. 6 months ago, I was going through motions, running my empire, making money, consolidating power. All of it felt meaningless. I'd forgotten why I did any of it." He turned to face her fully. "Then a pregnant cashier told me to take my money and leave, and something shifted." "I was rude to you," Elena said. "You were honest with me. No one is honest with me, Elena. They're strategic, they're careful, they're calculating. But you looked at $100 like it was contaminated and told me you didn't want my strings." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've spent months trying to figure out why that mattered so much. Why you mattered so much." "And?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "And I think I'm falling in love with you." He said it quietly, like a confession. "Or maybe I already have. I don't know the exact moment it happened. Maybe when you refused my money. Maybe when you collapsed because you were too stubborn to ask for help. Maybe it's been gradual, every conversation adding another layer, until suddenly I can't imagine my life without you in it." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I'm still in love with James." "I know. I'm pregnant with his baby. I know. I come with complications, trauma, a whole history you weren't part of. I know." Dominic cupped her face gently. "And I'm still here, still choosing this, still choosing you. Not despite those things, just along with them. You don't have to stop loving James to make room for me. Hearts don't work that way." "How do they work?" Elena asked, tears streaming down her face now. "I have no idea," Dominic admitted, "but I'd like to find out. With you. If you'll let me." Elena should have been cautious, should have protected herself, should have remembered all the reasons this was complicated and dangerous and potentially disastrous. But standing on her balcony, 8 months pregnant, with a man who'd somehow become her anchor, caution felt less important than truth. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Good," Dominic said. "It terrifies me too." He kissed her then, slowly, carefully, like she was made of spun glass. Elena melted into it, into him, into the impossible reality of this moment. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "What now?" she asked. "Now we take it one day at a time," Dominic said. "One honest conversation at a time. No promises about forever. Just this. Us. However it evolves." "Okay," Elena said. "One day at a time." They stood together, watching the city breathe, two broken people learning how to be whole. 3 weeks later, at 2:34 a.m., Elena's water broke. She woke to wetness and immediate panic, her hands going to her belly. The baby kicked frantically, as if sensing the change. Pain followed, not the contractions yet, but the awareness that everything was about to shift irreversibly. Elena called Dominic. He answered on the first ring. "It's time," she said. "I'm 10 minutes away." He made it in 6. Elena had her hospital bag ready, packed 3 weeks ago at Teresa's insistence. Dominic carried it to his car, then came back for Elena, helping her down the stairs with infinite patience. "I'm scared," she admitted as he drove through empty streets. "I know." His hand found hers. "I'm scared too." "Why are you scared? You're not the one about to push a human being out of your body." "No, but I'm about to watch someone I love go through something painful and dangerous, and there's nothing I can do to protect you from it." His voice was rough. "That's its own kind of terror." At the hospital, everything moved simultaneously, too fast and too slow. Nurses, monitors, gowns, needles. Elena's doctor appeared, Dr. Amelia Grant, who'd been handling her prenatal care for the past month. "How are we doing?" Dr. Grant asked, cheerfully. "Terrified," Elena gasped as a contraction hit. "Excellent. Fear means you're paying attention." The doctor checked monitors, nodded. "You're at 4 centimeters. We've got some time yet. Try to relax." Relaxation seemed impossible. The contractions came in waves, each one harder than the last. Dominic stayed beside her through all of it, holding her hand, counting breaths, whispering encouragement. Hours blurred together. Pain became Elena's entire universe. She screamed, cried, begged for it to stop. Dominic never left, never flinched, never wavered. "I can't do this," Elena sobbed during a particularly brutal contraction. "You can," Dominic said firmly. "You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." "It hurts." "I know, love, I know." He pressed his forehead to hers. "But soon you'll have your daughter. Soon this will be over and you'll hold her, and every second of this pain will mean something." At 4:47 p.m., 14 hours after her water broke, Dr. Grant said the words Elena had been desperate to hear. "It's time to push." Everything narrowed to this moment, the pain, the pressure, the overwhelming need to get this baby out. "Push," Dr. Grant commanded. Elena pushed. Dominic counted. The world reduced to effort and agony and determination. Again. Big push. Elena screamed and pushed, and somewhere in the chaos heard Dominic saying, "You're incredible. You're so strong. Keep going. One more. Give me everything you have." Elena gave everything. Her body, her will, every atom of strength she possessed. And then, a baby's cry split the air. "It's a girl," Dr. Grant announced unnecessarily, because Elena already knew, had known for months. But hearing it, seeing the tiny squirming bundle being lifted up, still connected by the umbilical cord, that made it real. "Oh my God," Elena sobbed. "Oh my God, she's here." The nurses cleaned her quickly, did their assessments, then placed her on Elena's chest. Warm, tiny, perfect. Black hair, plastered to her head, eyes squinted shut, mouth open in outrage at being removed from her comfortable darkness. "Hi, baby girl," Elena whispered, her entire body shaking with sobs. "Hi, I'm your mama. I'm right here. I've been waiting for you." Dominic stood slightly back, giving them space. But Elena saw his expression, the wonder, the grief, the profound longing. Saw him remembering what he'd lost, witnessing what he'd never have, processing emotions too complex to name. "Come here," Elena said softly. He approached slowly, cautiously, like he wasn't sure he had the right. Elena shifted the baby slightly, angling her so Dominic could see her face. "Dominic Lavros, meet Lily Grace Vasquez." "Lily, this is the man who made sure you'd have a home." Dominic stared at the baby. His jaw worked. His eyes shone with unshed tears. Then, moving with infinite care, he extended one scarred finger. Lily's impossibly tiny hand wrapped around it, gripping with newborn reflex. "Hello, little one," Dominic whispered, his voice breaking. "Welcome to the world. You are so loved, more than you'll ever understand." In that moment, in a hospital room filled with the sound of machines and a newborn's cries, 3 people became something new. Not quite a family in any traditional sense, but something real, something chosen, something that mattered. Elena looked up at Dominic, saw the tears finally falling down his face, and made a decision. "Would you like to hold her?" she asked. Dominic looked uncertain. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." The nurses showed him how to support her head, how to cradle her properly. Dominic held Lily like she was made of light, like she might disappear if he breathed wrong. He looked down at this tiny person, and Elena saw something shift in him. Some wall crumbling, some frozen place thawing. "She's perfect," he said. "She is," Elena agreed. He held Lily for a long time, swaying slightly, murmuring to her in Italian. Whatever he said, Lily seemed to approve. She quieted, her breathing settling into peaceful rhythm. When he finally handed her back to Elena, his expression was transformed. More open, more vulnerable than she'd ever seen. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for letting me be here, for letting me be part of this." "You are part of this," Elena said. "You're part of us, if you want to be." "I want to be," Dominic said immediately, "more than anything." That night, after the visitors had been sent away and Lily was sleeping in her bassinet and Elena was alone with Dominic, they talked about the future. "I don't know what this looks like," Elena admitted. "You and me and Lily, how we make this work." "Neither do I," Dominic said. "But I know I want to try. I want to be here for her first words, her first steps, everything. I want to be someone she can count on." He paused. "If you'll let me." "What about your world, the danger?" "I'll keep you both safe. That's not negotiable." His voice hardened. "Anyone who even thinks about threatening either of you will learn very quickly what a mistake that is." Elena believed him, had no doubt he meant every word. "Okay," she said. "We try. We figure it out as we go. We stay honest with each other." "Always," Dominic promised. He kissed her forehead and left to let her sleep. But before he went, he stood over Lily's bassinet for a long moment, looking down at the sleeping baby. "I'll protect you," Elena heard him whisper. "Both of you. Always." The first month was chaos. Lily cried at all hours, slept in random intervals, reduced Elena to a stumbling zombie operating on caffeine and desperate determination. But she wasn't alone. Dominic was there constantly, not intrusive, not overbearing, just present. He'd arrive in the evening after his business concluded. Elena had learned not to ask too many specifics, and he'd take Lily so Elena could shower or sleep or just exist without tiny hands clutching at her. He learned to change diapers with the same efficiency he probably applied to hostile negotiations. Figured out Lily's different cries: hungry, tired, uncomfortable, just generally annoyed at existence. Walked endless loops around the apartment at 3 a.m., patting her back and singing Italian lullabies in that dark velvet voice. "You're good at this," Elena said one night, watching him soothe a fussy Lily. "I read 7 books on infant care," Dominic admitted. 7? I wanted to be useful. He was more than useful. He was essential, Not just for the practical help, but for the emotional support. For being someone who didn't judge her when she cried from exhaustion, who didn't make her feel guilty for struggling, who just understood. Sophia visited for a week, fell completely in love with her niece, and asked the question Elena had been avoiding. "Who is he?" Sophia demanded, sitting on Elena's couch while Dominic was out. "The guy who paid my tuition, who's clearly living here half the time, who looks at you like you're the only person in the world who matters." "It's complicated," Elena said. "Elena." Sophia grabbed her hands. "I've seen how he is with Lily, how he is with you. That's not complicated. That's love. He's dangerous, Sophia. He's involved in things. I don't care if he's the actual devil," Sophia interrupted. "He makes you happy. He keeps you safe. He adores your daughter, and you're in love with him. I can see it every time you look at him." Elena couldn't deny it, didn't want to. "Yeah," she admitted. "I'm in love with him." "Does he know?" "We've talked about it. We're taking it slow." "Slow?" Sophia laughed. "He's at your apartment every night. He holds your baby like she's his. He looks at you like—" She shook her head. "That's not slow, Elena. That's commitment pretending to be casual." After Sophia left, Elena thought about those words, about how Dominic had integrated himself into their lives so thoroughly that she couldn't imagine days without him, about how Lily reached for him when she was upset, how she settled faster in his arms sometimes than in Elena's, about how somewhere along the way they'd become a family. One evening, 2 months after Lily's birth, Elena found Dominic reading to her. Not baby books, a leather-bound collection of Italian poetry that Lily obviously couldn't understand. But she was captivated anyway, staring up at him with wide eyes, her tiny hand wrapped around his finger. Elena stood in the doorway, watching them. Dominic caught sight of her and smiled, one of those rare, genuine smiles that transformed his entire face. "She likes Dante," he said. "Or she likes the sound of it anyway." "I think she just likes you," Elena said. She crossed the room, sat beside him on the couch. Lily made a happy gurgling sound, waving her free hand. "Dominic," Elena said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever regret this, getting involved with us? Taking on responsibility for a baby who isn't yours?" Dominic set the book aside, turned to face her fully. "Never. Not once. Not even for a second." He looked down at Lily, then back at Elena. "You two are the best thing that's happened to me in years. Maybe ever. You make me remember why life matters, why fighting for something can be about more than just power or money or territory." "We're a lot of chaos," Elena warned. "I know." He leaned over, kissed her gently. "I love the chaos. I love the 3 a.m. feedings, and the spit up on my suits, and the way Lily screams bloody murder when she wants attention. I love all of it because it's real, and it's yours, and you've let me be part of it." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I love you." "I know." He smiled. "I love you too. You and this tiny tyrant." He booped Lily's nose gently, making her giggle. "I want this to be permanent," Elena said. "Not casual, not temporary. Actually permanent. You, me, Lily, whatever that looks like." Dominic's expression softened into something almost reverent. "Are you sure? Because once we cross that line, I'm not letting either of you go. You'll be mine and I'll be yours, and that's forever." "I'm sure," Elena said. "I love you, Dominic. Not the person I thought you might be, not who you could be. You, exactly as you are. The good, the bad, the terrible things you've done, all of it." He kissed her then, deeply, a kiss that tasted like promises and permanence. Lily squeaked in protest at being squished between them, making them both laugh. "Okay," Dominic said against Elena's lips. "Permanent it is." "What does that mean, exactly?" Elena asked. "For someone like you?" "It means I claim you publicly. It means anyone who works for me, knows you and Lily are untouchable. It means I build protections around you both so comprehensive that nothing and no one can threaten you. He pulled back, looked into her eyes. It means I marry you, if you'll have me. Not tomorrow, not until you're ready, but eventually. Because I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours. Elena's breath caught. You want to marry me? More than I've wanted anything in a very long time. He touched her face gently. But only when you're ready. No pressure, no timeline, just eventually. Eventually, Elena echoed, testing the word. It felt right, felt safe. I like eventually. They sat together on the couch, Lily between them, and talked about the future. About what life would look like, how they'd navigate his world while protecting hers. How they'd raise Lily with honesty about who Dominic was while shielding her from the worst of it. It wasn't simple. It wouldn't be easy, but it was real, and it was theirs, and that was enough. 6 months later, Elena stood in a new apartment, actually theirs this time, purchased jointly, a real home. Lily sat in her high chair, destroying a banana with gleeful enthusiasm, her black curls bouncing as she babbled in her own private language. Dominic emerged from the kitchen with coffee, handed Elena a mug, kissed the top of her head. Small domesticity. Ordinary moments that felt extraordinary because they'd fought so hard to reach them. Raymond called, Dominic said, referencing his second in command. The negotiations with the Torellis concluded successfully. No bloodshed required. Elena had learned the broad strokes of Dominic's business: importing, exporting, territory management, dispute resolution. She didn't ask for details that would keep her awake at night, and he didn't offer them. They'd found a balance between honesty and preservation of sanity. Good, Elena said. Sophia's coming next week. She wants to take Lily to the zoo. I'll clear my schedule. Dominic picked up Lily, who immediately grabbed his nose and yanked. He didn't even flinch. Can't miss seeing this one terrorize the monkeys. Elena watched them together, Dominic in his expensive suit, now permanently decorated with baby food stains, holding Lily with the confidence of practice. He'd never tried to replace James, had insisted on keeping James's photo in Lily's room, talking about him as the man your mama loved first. That generosity, that security, had allowed Elena to fully open her heart to this new future. I have something for you, Dominic said, setting Lily back in her chair. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Elena's heart stuttered. Dominic! Before you panic, it's not what you think. Or maybe it is, depending on what you think. He opened the box, revealing a ring, not a diamond, a sapphire, deep blue, surrounded by smaller stones. This was my grandmother's, the only thing I inherited that mattered. I want you to have it. I can't take your grandmother's ring, Elena protested. You can, and you will. He took it out, held it up. Because you're going to marry me. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but eventually. And when that day comes, I want you wearing something that connects you to where I came from, to the people who made me. He paused. My grandmother was the only person who saw me as human before I became powerful. You do the same thing. It feels right that you should have her ring. Tears streamed down Elena's face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Elena Vasquez, will you eventually marry me? Elena laughed through her tears. Yes. Eventually, I will eventually marry you. Lily clapped her hands, delighted by the attention, even if she didn't understand the significance. Dominic pulled Elena into his arms, kissed her soundly, and Elena felt pieces of her broken life clicking into place. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too, Dominic said. You and this beautiful chaos you've brought into my world. That night, after Lily was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Elena stood at the window, looking out at the city. Dominic joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. Do you ever regret saying no to me that first night? He asked. Elena thought about that moment in the convenience store. The $100 bill, the choice to refuse. Everything that had cascaded from that single decision. Never, she said. That was the moment everything changed. For both of us, Dominic agreed. They stood together watching the city lights, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. A pregnant cashier who'd refused to be bought. A mafia boss who'd been desperate for honesty. A baby girl who'd bound them together in ways neither could have predicted. It wasn't a fairy tale. Dominic's world was still dangerous, still complicated, still full of darkness. Elena would never fully understand. But here, in their home, with their daughter sleeping peacefully down the hall, they'd carved out something bright and real and permanent. "Come to bed," Elena said, turning in his arms. Dominic smiled, that genuine smile that still had the power to transform his entire face. "Yes, ma'am." They walked through their home together, turning off lights, checking on their sleeping daughter, preparing for whatever tomorrow would bring. And for the first time since James died, Elena wasn't afraid of the future. She was home. They were home. Together. And that was everything.